Morning, everybody. Let's get our other Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to take off for our Monday morning Broncos for Breakfast show. We got the spinning wheels 1 and 2, and we're going. Welcome in, folks. It is the final Monday before the NFL draft, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, for these morning shows, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing there? I heard the weather might be flipping back to cold out there in Georgia or something.
You got
What's
it.
going on?
You got it. It's cold again. So getting warm in here though. So I'm gonna have to take off my little hoodie
Ooh.
here.
Look out, man. Careful. Tiffany Silver will leave you a super chat asking about what you're wearing underneath there, Scott. But welcome in, everybody. It is good time. We're going to do a little bit of mock draft today, and also had a chance to ask some questions with the Athletics' Dane Brugler, and he got back to me about some Broncos one. Obviously, you guys are in here. We've had a lot of Broncos draft content, but not a lot of Broncos draft content from the big draft media folks. So getting a chance to sit down and pick Dane Brugler's brain, I think, is something that's interesting coming up in the NFL draft here, seeing what he has to say with the draft coming up on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But first, before we get into that article, let's say hello to some people in the chat. We got our guy David saying morning Broncos country. Might be a few questions about the offensive line, but if Randy Browning stay healthy with all the free agent sign, they may be okay. So he's talking about edge rusher here. Scott, we've talked about edge a bit, but what is your thought as we enter draft week here about the Broncos at the edge position?
If you like one of the edges, again, I don't think any position should be off the table. Can you get better on the offensive line early? Yeah, you can. Are there going to be corners available? Yeah, you can. If you love an edge that falls to that spot, it's harder to get impact players at the premium positions in the third round.
Mm-hmm.
You can get impact players at the non-premium positions because all the premium positions have already been taken up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting my edges, corners, wide receivers, quarterbacks all early. So you know what that leaves me in the third round? Guards, centers, running backs, tight ends, safeties that are really, really good players. So I might be able to get better by taking a non-premium position player, but getting one of the top guys in the draft at the top of the third. So again, a lot of it depends on how the board falls.
Yeah. And the Broncos do have 67, 68. We'll see if they stay at those spots. I think it's probably not likely that they stay at both of them, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, offensive edge rusher. Right now, you're sitting in a room that has a lot of bodies, but not a lot of certainty. You mentioned Browning and Randy, being fine, being healthy. We'll see if that happens. Also, you got a bunch of depth guys that maybe somebody gets moved. We've talked about it on here a bit. Jonathan Cooper's been a good player for the Broncos, but he's a good number 3, number 4 kind of guy. Maybe you chip him off kind of like the Broncos traded Malik Reed last year. You still have Jacob Martin on the roster. He could be somebody that you flip for a late pick. Or you use him to move up late in the draft. But yeah, really interesting. It depends on how the board falls. Edge is certainly something the Broncos are doing work on. Todd coming in saying can't stay for the live show. Just wanted to say hello. Hello to you. Dominique coming in. Happy Monday to my Broncos family. Jamal Killings killing it out there. Good morning, Broncos country. Chase Wellner excited. It's the draft week. So is Colin. Whoop-de-doo. It's draft week. Whoop-de-doo. Good job, Colin. I'm going to read that as a happy one. Austin H. Chase, who do you want the Broncos to draft? Yeah, Chase, who do you want the Broncos to draft? Austin H. says he wants the running back Eric Gray from Oklahoma. Thinks he's going to be a stud. Eric Gray's been a fine player from Oklahoma. I think the Broncos could probably get him round 4, round 5. I don't think I would take him round 4, just because I think there'd probably be other guys available still. But if he's there round 5, then sure, he's a kind of a do everything back. Not really exceptional in any one area, but he's also not detrimental in any one area also. So round 5, I think, is a good spot for him. Any thoughts on Eric Gray, Scott?
No, I agree with you. And if I'm getting that far down in the weeds, I guess, again, it depends on who would be there.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Gray was solid at Senior Bowl. And again, to really be good in a Sean Payton offense, he's got to be a good receiver. That's going to be key. Again, I bring it back all the time about, the wide receiver this or the air raid this. No. Alvin Kamara had 80 receptions a year for 4 straight years under Sean Payton. 80.
Yeah.
That's a lot of touches. So you want to get whoever you bring in needs to be a good receiver out of the backfield. It's a must.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree with you. Kevin Gray, thank you so much. Good morning to you, Kevin. Rob in the house, and good morning. Best MHH team. It's draft week, final mock draft Monday. Yeah, we'll get into it, no doubt. Jeremy coming in saying, morning, fellas, long time no see. Chris Sims said it would take a mid-round pick to get Trey Lance. Would you do it for a mid-round pick if his medicals are fine? Yes, I would toss that out there. I know the Sean Payton really loved to use Taysom Hill. I think at worst case, you have a height, weight, speed, large kind of body type guy that can be a Taysom Hill package player early on. But I think it's probably going to take more than a mid-round pick, I would assume, unless there's something else going on there.
I just, again, what you just said was the take more than a mid-round pick. I mean, why would he go from
Three
three
first.
first-round picks to a fourth rounder in the evaluation of the San Francisco 49ers unless they had a massive personnel change in their front offices?
Mm-hmm.
I just cannot see that happening. I cannot.
Yeah.
It's not like he's overly expensive. He hasn't had really a chance to do much of anything out there before he got hurt. It's just, has his stock fallen off to let's just cut the salary of this guy in 2 seasons? I don't see it. I really don't.
I don't understand it either. I mean, he's played 2.5 games. He's as young this year as Mac Jones was as a rookie, so it's not like he's like older or anything still. There's a lot of like years
And
potentially
Chris
left. So
Sims was pushing the Mac Jones at number 3 overall. Chris Sims likes to put a lot of stuff out there to be different, so to
he is
speak.
he is very close with Kyle Shanahan though. Like they have like matching tattoos. There's
Well, then how
something.
come they missed? Then how come he missed on Mac Jones to the San Francisco 49ers?
Heck if I know. I think there's a little bit of interesting conversation there about the front office liking somebody and the coaching staff liking somebody else, based on what I've heard there. But it's just speculation. But it will be interesting. If back to the comment there though, if Trey Lance is available for a mid-round pick, I would take a swing. I thought he was an
I would
intriguing player.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know if you have your long-term option there. If it just cost you your 4th-round pick this year and you still have
Done.
2-3 years of control left, it makes sense to me. Dave Glassman with the Hearts. Good to see you, Dave. Phillip coming in. Good morning, everyone. Can't wait for the draft. We can't either. We got our guy, our person Carol coming in saying, good morning, Broncos country. Albert Knopper is woohoo. A couple days until the draft. Very great. Was the cook late? I'm hungry. We were just covering the Falcons over there. So it's going to be this week. It's going to be covering it as much as we can. We're going to be out there a lot. I need to get some throat lozenges to help protect my throat there because we're going to be yammering away about all the prospects and covering you for the Falcons and the Broncos pretty much every day. Greg Smith, good morning, Broncos country. Good to see you, Greg. Got our guy Dom in the house. Great to see you, Dom. Also, Albert Knopper is coming in saying, do you think Henry To'o would be a great option for the Broncos? He's a little bit small. He's not a great athlete. He had a lot of hype coming in to this season and kind of fell off a little bit from Alabama. If he's there round 3 and you like him, sure, why not? I don't think he's a supreme player, but he could be, an average starting linebacker. I think he's got good instincts, and that's probably the most important thing for the linebacker spot.
So you just gave an underwhelming scouting report and then said 3rd round.
Fourth, 5th.
Yeah. Okay. Because you said if he's there, you said if he's there in the 3rd, then maybe. I'm like, you just made him sound like a 5th or 6th rounder to me, Nick.
No, he's
at linebacker. If I'm going 3rd round on a linebacker, I want him to be plus. I want him to be really good, not he's fine. He does this. Okay, then down the road a little bit, then maybe.
Yeah. No, I think he's early day 3 is what I'd see from him. He'll be an interesting player. Got our guy Lance coming in, top of the morning. Good to see you, Dehain. Says, morning, gents, trying to get to work and wanted to say hello. We'll watch the episode when I get off work. We'll put it on at work. Everybody appreciate it. Gary Palmer, 1999, breaking us off. We thank you so much, Gary, with the super chat, kicking us off. Good morning, Nick and Scott. BPA is the mantra, I think. Seems that was the mantra when the Broncos were interviewing this last week at the press conference with Sean Payton and George Payton as well. So taking the best guy could go a number of options. Could the Broncos draft Trey Palmer, a wide receiver from Nebraska? Yes, they definitely could draft Trey Palmer. I don't think I would take him 67, 68. Personally, I think he's probably about 75 to 90 range, in my opinion. I like Reed more. I like Tyler Scott more than him, but Trey Palmer is certainly an option. If he falls to the Broncos round 4 and you have a chance at him, you're doing cartwheels. You're very excited about that pick.
Yeah, I like him a little bit better than that, honestly. Just with the good hands, the route running, and then the traits on him. 6 foot 192 with a 4.33. I mean, he's fast. He can fly. You want to talk about somebody that brings something a little different to your team. This is maybe the guy that you thought you were getting when you drafted KJ Hamler, and you haven't been able to get him on the field enough to find out what kind of impact would a guy with that kind of speed. But he's not just a speed guy. He can cut off routes and run and catch underneath and catch slants and goes and sluggos, but he does have that speed that you don't really have on the team. And as far as I'm concerned, you don't have KJ Hamler because you haven't been able to have KJ Hamler. So going with someone like Palmer, I think he should be 3rd round at the latest.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's an early third, and I feel like you like Palmer more than Scott and Reed, where I'm
I
more
know,
of
but I
a
know those guys better. I know Palmer better than the other two. So it's not a comparison with those other two for me. It's a comparison of where players with these traits typically go and succeed in the NFL, and it's higher than 90.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying. I'm not saying, okay, I'd rather have him over this guy. I'm just giving you an evaluation on Trey Palmer from what I've seen based on what I know through the past, and he will outperform a 90, is my opinion, especially on this team where they
Yeah.
could, where he could come in and be a wide receiver 3/4 and ease into it, and then you can use his weaponry. But again, well, we've got a fast guy. You got a track guy on your team, Nick. You don't have Trey Palmer is a wide receiver who runs a 4.33, not a track guy who you're putting out there and is a one-trick pony. He's a wide receiver. I like Trey Palmer, Gary, and I like Gary coming in orange. So appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Gary. Got Michael Ronquillo also saying, "Good morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and Buck 'em."
Thank you for
Buck
the
you too,
stars,
Michael.
Michael.
God bless, man. We love it. DJ Capo coming in. Good morning. I think we should get a tight end and running back in the draft. After the draft, get DeAndre Hopkins. We'll see about DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know what's going to happen with him. There's been some Kansas City buzz there, unfortunately. I don't know if the Broncos are going to be trading for a wide receiver, but we'll see. Anything's possible. Keith Brugman coming in and saying Tank Bigsby or Abanikana. I like Tank Bigsby more. Auburn running back, a little bit more packs a punch. I think Abanikana is a good vision player, but I don't think he does anything exceptionally well. I think Bigsby was carrying a pretty terrible infrastructure there at Auburn the last few seasons. Had a really good rookie season. I think it was a couple years ago. Players at the combine were asking who's the toughest player to tackle this last year you played, and everybody was saying Tank Bigsby. He might have been the
Guy
SEC.
with the name Tank.
Yeah, I mean, he runs tough. He might have been the SEC Rookie of the Year or Freshman of the Year when he first came out too. So I like Tank Bigsby. I think he's been on a pretty bad Auburn team and been running backs a dependent position, and he has not had dependables around him. So give me Tank Bigsby.
If my teams weren't dysfunctional, I just wouldn't have teams.
Yeah.
So between Auburn and Chelsea and
Chelsea.
they're all basket cases.
Yeah, unfortunately. Zach Powers, morning. Good to see you, Zach. We also got Donald Wilson coming in here. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. We have our guy Dan Wilkett saying, morning, MHH. Hope all is well. All's pretty well. William Hall in the house saying, let's go Broncos country. Good to see you. And also we got Austin H saying, I'm interested in seeing Darnold in that offense. Like he's going to have untapped potential. He's talking about it San Francisco. So obviously San Francisco has Sam Darnold. He'd be interested in with Kyle Shanahan. I know that Scott's a big detractor of Darnold and been proven right on that one so far. But that will be interesting with San Francisco. And they have Brock Purdy as well, who's coming off a serious injury, but will be fun. And Jeremy asking Zach Charbonnet or Bigsby. I like Charbonnet more than I like Bigsby. But Bigsby's a good player as well. Bigsby's one of those ones that if he's there round 4 and the Broncos take him, I'd be ecstatic. Who would I have over Bigsby? Obviously, the big two in this upcoming draft in Robinson and Gibbs. I'd have Charbonnet over him. I'd have A-Chain over him. And I'd have Roshan Johnson. But after that, I think Bigsby be my next running back. So solid
Let's
class.
see. You said A-Change in Spears. Yeah. So if you go to NFL mock draft database, Bigsby is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I know you wouldn't take Spears ahead of him.
Because the knee is
because of the injury concerns. Chase Brown could be in that conversation. Kenny McIntosh could be in that conversation. He's just a little bit smaller. He's a different type of back. Kenny McIntosh is a slot receiver playing running back.
Yeah. Will be fun to see. Broncos definitely looking to bring in another running back still. Kathy,
he's big, Chris. I mean, he's 6'205". He just maybe it's that single digit number that throws me off on McIntosh. Just looks he's 5'10", 180 when he's out there playing. He's bigger than I give him credit for, that's for sure. But and that's a good thing. If you can move and catch and run like a slot receiver and be 205 pounds, you become real interesting.
Yeah, without a doubt. We got Kathy coming in saying, hello, Nick and Scott. Glad to catch you live again. Glad to have you catch us live. Hope you're doing well. Hope everything after your medical stuff is on the up and up. We got Carol coming in here saying, we got Michael saying, I'd like to send thoughts and prayers to Justin and the family for the loss of the father. Didn't see that, but thoughts and prayers for Simmons and his family. It's definitely tough. Carol saying, are we ignoring defense with Sean Payton? We need to go get a good quarterback seeker after losing Chubb and my all-time favorite Von Miller, or am I missing something? If the Broncos had the 5th overall pick in this draft, and we'd be talking a lot of quarterback, but we'd also be talking a lot of edge rusher. The issue is that where the Broncos are picking, not a sure thing at that edge spot. And they have options at the rim. I don't see them having a superstar player. I mean, Randy Gregory has superstar traits, honestly, but he's just so perennially unavailable. But definitely an edge rusher is on the table for the Broncos. We talked about it earlier.
Yeah, again, the premium positions are hard to get in the third. And you went and got Zach Allen. That's definitely not ignoring the defensive side of the ball. But when you're looking at this team last year, you felt okay about the defense. If the defense takes a slight step back, you still have a pretty good defense. The offense needed to take massive leaps forward to get to be a bad offense. It was awful. It would have to improve to get to be bad. So when you're talking about where do I want to put my resources now, because you can't fix everything in one offseason, they've chosen the right direction while still going out and getting a replacement for Draymond Jones and pouring some of the resources into the offensive lines, which have been a disaster since I've been covering this team. This is my third offseason now.
Yeah. It's hopefully the offensive line is better. We'll see what happens. News on the offensive line, a guy that I kept saying, hey, the Broncos maybe should turn around and sign this guy. Connor McGovern just re-signed with the Jets this morning. I just got a tweet notification. So there's an option that was on the table for the Broncos that's off, unfortunately. But we'll see what happens with center. Maybe it's going to be Lloyd Cushenberry. At least you've kind of protected some things around him to maybe bring out a little bit of better value from him. We got
Colin has a good question. How can anybody watch enough film to form opinions on all these players? He says, I don't know how they find the time. If that's all you do year round, it's actually, there's more time than you would think. And especially once you start doing it, Colin, if I'm watching Georgia, I watch a Georgia and Alabama game. I'm seeing not just this year, but I'm seeing next year's guys. So I'm talking about Jalen Carter, but I've also now formed a slight opinion on their freshmen that are coming up. So it's kind of osmosis as you start watching these guys. And frankly, when I was doing high school football recruiting, I led a team that covered 3,000 players between junior colleges and high school guys. And that's all we did year round. And I was always kind of uncomfortable with recruiting expert Scott Kennedy. I'm like, I don't like that phrase, expert. And then I'd start talking about it and they'd ask me questions. I'm talking to somebody in Colorado about players that the Colorado that the Buffs are looking at. I'm like, yeah, I kind of am an expert on this stuff. And then once you're out of it, you realize how much work actually went into it. When you're in it, it's just what you do, and it just keeps coming. It just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up. Jumping in the beginning is incredibly intimidating. And I don't do it full time. So like just now when Nick and I were talking about Palmer versus Reed, and I'll tell you flat out, I haven't watched those guys. I don't consider myself a draft expert. I consider myself a good evaluator of talent, but if I haven't seen them, I haven't seen them. But if this is what you're doing full time, Colin, to come up with 300 guys that are draft picks, you need to scout about 500. It's actually not as hard as you might think when you're doing it full time.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean everybody's good at it, but there is time to do it.
And Jeremy gives us a list of half the receivers in the draft, asking us to rank them. I'll just pick out a few here that I really like personally. I really like Mims as a Z/slot down the field, ability to make catches above the rim. Same with Reed. I think Reed is very underrated if you're looking to add somebody who can bring some receiving talent. Tillman might be my favorite X in this class. I don't think he's very dynamic with the ball in his hands, not very sudden or anything. But if you want a guy who can, toss it up and go get it, I think his catch rate was unbelievable out there at Tennessee the last couple seasons. Played with a high ankle sprain this last year. I'll leave Mingo and Palmer for Scott to talk about. And the final one I wanted to get into, Charlie Jones killed it at Purdue this year. Was really good at Iowa the year before. He's an awesome returner, solid athlete. I think he's somebody as your wide receiver 4 or 5 in the room, could be a really good option for a number of teams. So, I mean, you're talking about totally different body types here for a lot of these guys. The one on this list that is, I think Scott's higher on than me, I'm just not in on him. And it's probably because I have a bias against this type. Is Tank Dell. He is small and he's not fast. He's quick. He can get open underneath really quickly, but he's not a very good blocker because he is so small. He doesn't offer much of a vertical threat. I need you to bring something a little bit more than that if you're going to be that small person. I'm not as in on the tiny Wes Welker, Cole Beasley slot receivers in today's NFL.
No, middle rounds for Tank Dell for me.
Yeah,
middle rounds. And again, what does he bring? He's a pure slot. Return man. He brings some swagger out there. But no, I'm not. I'm a I'm much more biased towards the bigger guys.
Yeah.
I am. Tank Dell had a great Senior Bowl, good route runner, but it's not full pads. And I think I told you the story one time. There's a kid out of John, I think it's John Curtis Christian out of Louisiana, and I can't remember his name, but he was like the number one player in the country and goes to USC, freshman there, and he didn't look like just a good USC. And this was when USC was loaded. He looked like the best player on the field as a freshman while they're in shorts and T-shirts. First day they go to pads, Brian Cushing he looked like a hammer. I swear to God, it looked like an animation. Running back, and I can never remember his name. I think he ended up playing for the Jets for like a year. Like blocks down to take it, and Cushing just boom right on top of his head. Never heard from the guy again. It was over. It's like, yeah, once the pads come on, you got to have some size and strength on there. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Mingo. Guys that are 220 pounds running 4.45s that can catch and move in the open field.
Yeah,
really like him a lot. And Keith says that Falcons shirt is killing me. It dropped into the 40s this morning, and I was like, what can I put on? What can I put on? And I was like, oh, yeah, we're doing a Falcons show today. I guess I'll put it on. This is the first time I've ever made this mistake, ever. I don't usually even wear anything with a logo on it on the shows. So, yeah, it's killing me too, man. I agree with you. Usually it's straight Chelsea, and I didn't grab a Chelsea sweatshirt. I should have.
Well, let's get into
Apologies.
this. It's okay, Scott. I forgive you. I wear Hawkeye stuff all the time, and we're not covering the Hawks, so that's okay. I had a chance to sit down and ask Dane Brugler of The Athletic some questions. Reached out to him back in like February saying, hey, not a lot of Broncos draft coverage out there. Do you have a chance? Would you like to come on the show, do an interview, or answer some questions? Like, I got to get the beast out. I'm only sleeping, 3 hours a night right now because I'm working on this prospect article of like 10,000 guys, and it's unbelievable. If you have a chance to check out The Athletic, there's not a better compilation of draft information than Dane Brugler's beast. He also did a 7-round mock as well. So Dane, very appreciative that he reached back out to me and said, hey, I'd like to answer those questions now. And again, had a chance to, maybe I leaned in on his goodwill a little bit because instead of asking him 4 short ones, I asked him 6 longer questions, and he gave me some longer responses. But the first one here I asked him about, everybody's curious for the Broncos. Asking about the offensive line. It says, given Sean Payton's lineage as a Bill Parcells coaching disciple, it's not surprising his first offseason in Denver has been very trench-oriented. Who are a few offensive linemen to help further bolster the offensive line that Denver could target at pick 67 and 68? And Brugler says, I expect we'll see double-digit offensive linemen drafted in the top 60 picks. Honestly, I think the position drops off pretty quickly after the first 2 rounds, especially at offensive tackle. There are a handful of offensive linemen expected to be drafted in the 3rd round range. That might make some sense for Denver. He mentions Old Dominion's Nick Saldiveri, right tackle in college, and teams are split about whether he's a guard or tackle. Only has average traits, but does a great job losing slowly with efficiency at the position as a blocker. So good technique guy. He also mentions Alabama's Tyler Steen is well liked, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the 3rd round. He also mentions interior lineman from LSU, who we've talked about, Anthony Bradford, who's massive at 6'4", 332 pounds and long arms. Still young and needs some time to develop, but could be a great power scheme guard in the NFL. So what's your big takeaway there from Dane Brugler's answer, Scott, there mentioning that the offensive line drops off a lot, he thinks, at least after the first 2 rounds?
It helps explain why you dropped about $150 million in free agency on 2 offensive linemen. The lack of available options for you in the draft to come in and help your offensive line right away means I need guys that can come in and play right away. And I went out and I wasn't expecting a guard, Nick. I wasn't expecting that kind of money being thrown at guard. I was expecting it at right tackle. So to me, it says we need to shore up this offensive line, and we're going to do it in free agency because we can't count on doing it in the draft.
Yeah. It's the names that he listed too are ones that we've talked about. I think we have not talked very much about Tyler Steen, honestly. And I think he's somebody
you're correct. We have not. He was at the Senior Bowl and was just kind of meh. He was okay. But he wasn't somebody that jumped out at me as he didn't do a whole lot while he was there. Decent athletic numbers, 6'6", 320, 32.5-inch arms, which is going to make you say guard. 4.59 shuttle, which is really good, and a 29.5 vertical jump, which is okay, not great. It's about middle of the pack for an offensive lineman, but he was okay at Senior Bowl.
Yeah. And I think his tape is okay as well at Alabama. I think if the Broncos took him at 67, 68, I would get it, especially if they had not just paid all that money for a left guard. But now that they're sitting there, They really need a center, and I just don't know if that's going to happen. We'll have a chance to talk a little bit of center as well. But the offensive tackle spot here, did want to give a shout out to the guy he mentioned here in, again, coming back to Old Dominions, Nick Saldiveri. I think it was last Wednesday we did a mock draft covering the Broncos, and I took Nick Saldiveri in the 4th round, and PFF gave me a D- for the pick or something like that. But he's climbing up boards. I think that he is going to end up being a round 3 pick. Somebody out there. He's got some positional versatility. I also think he's been working on snapping the football. Didn't have overwhelming, incredible traits, but he's like one of those body types that you could see him literally playing any spot on the offensive line, and a very technical player, which to me means that he has a good ceiling as well for that position. So somebody that I like a lot.
He's steady. He's not going to do anything that's going to wow you, good or bad, which I'm okay with that at offensive line. 6'6", 318, 33 and change on his arms, 4.69 shuttle, 31-inch. So what he needs to do is go out there and grab a basketball and do some big old dunks, bringing the thing down, and people go, "Oh yeah, I want that guy." You know, I've actually advised that with some prospects for us to go out and just throw an Instagram video of you guys out there just dunking a basketball. And he's a good enough athlete at 6'6", 30+ inch vertical, and he was solid at the Senior Bowl. And Donald Willison coming in here solid for us as well. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming in green with that super chat. Helps keep the lights on and might get me some new threads.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Donald. You've been a newer contributor to the show, but you've definitely made your presence known. So I hope you're doing well. He's still having a problem with the phone and donating. Anyway, well, thanks, Donald. Hopefully you didn't do that
for sure.
Hopefully that wasn't an accident. No refunds. No. Anyway, moving forward. Coming back, the next question, talking about center here. Obviously, very offensive line oriented this offseason with the Broncos, and keeping the questions here for Dane, offensive oriented. I asked him, said, on the offense right now, one could argue the biggest hole remaining on the roster is that of the center position. While center of proper value might not make it to Denver when Denver's on the clock, is there a center that could fall within range for a slight trade up? Would you deem any center in this class worthy trading up for? Dane says Minnesota's John Michael Schmitz has a lot of 3rd and 4th round grades around the league, but because it isn't a great group of centers in the top 100 picks, wouldn't be surprising at all if Schmitz goes as high as the top 50. It is possible the Broncos could stay at 67 and get him, but it seems more likely he goes in the first 2 rounds and would require a trade up. Schmitz went 57 overall in my 7-round mock after Wisconsin's Joe Tippmann, and Schmitz. And we'll see if the center is drafted after Schmitz and Tippmann. We'll see if the center is drafted day 2. There are split opinions on players like Luke Weipler, Ricky Stromberg from Arkansas, and Juice Scruggs from Penn State. Any of these 3 could sneak in the top 100, but I wouldn't take them there. A player that could be some interest is North Dakota State's Cody Mock. Didn't play center in college, but wouldn't be surprising if it turns out to be the best in this class. Superior athlete at the position with toughness and smarts to help at multiple positions. Versatility is key with Mock. So listing a bunch of different guys here. Obviously, every single one we've talked about before. We haven't talked super a lot about Stromberg or Scruggs. I think last week somebody asked about day 3 center options, and I said my guy here would be Stromberg, and you mentioned Emil Ekiyor as your guy. But it's not a great center class, and it's unfortunate for the Broncos. And the way that Brugler talks about it, I know that we need a center, but I'm of the opinion I don't think you trade up for one if possible. I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze.
And typically speaking, it's never a great center class. You know, there might be 1 or 2 guys, but you never think, oh yeah, there's 10 centers in this class, because frankly, the best offensive linemen don't get moved to center. They're playing tackle. So it's kind of a, I hate to say it since my son's a goalie, but it's like, okay, he ain't worth a damn in the field. Let's put him in goal because he's got to play. That's kind of how people end up being centers, honestly. Now, there's great ones that are out there, of course, but it's not a coveted position by players where, oh yeah, I want to play center. No. I want to play offensive tackle. It's at least somewhat glamorous on the offensive line. So if you can find the guy with the traits, the attitude, the athleticism, the strength and power, and then you can still get an improvement on the line, even if you don't think it's a great center class. It's never a great center class.
Yeah. I liked last year's options, the top 2 with Cam Jurgens and Tyler Linderbaum. But this year, it's just, I think that I've talked with Brugler a few, DMs about the class and whatnot throughout the year, and he's been of the opinion that it's been a poor center class for a while in comparison to league.
And when did Linderbaum go?
20th?
You're not getting him at 67.
No, of course not.
But when I consider a great class, isn't do I have 2 at the top that are worth top 50s? It's who can I get at 7? To me, a great class, and that's the thing that they make that mistake all the time when we're talking about the draft. Is they judge it by the top of the heap, the top 10%. That's where it's judged. Man, your team is built from 25 on. So don't tell me about, okay, well, the number one guy, and we're going to hear this next year about what a great draft class it is, and it might be, but it's going to be because of the top 5 picks. What goes beyond those picks is going to what is, to me, what depth is more important than top of the heap when I'm talking about strength of a class.
Yeah.
So in that note, it's never a great center class. There's no, the number 8 center in this class is really awesome. You don't hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can find one, you should be set for 10 years. It's not a flashy position.
Yeah, it's not. And I just want to give a second to talk a little bit of Stromberg, just because I think the body type and the versatility is one that makes some sense for the Broncos round 4 specifically. 6'3", 310 pounds at the combine. He's not one of these tiny centers that I think the Broncos looking for more of a power-based run scheme. The small body types are not as ones they want. Also, he has 33.5 arm length on his pro day measurement. Didn't test exceptionally well, but I mean, for the center, especially if you're not playing outside zone a bunch, I don't know how important that is, but he's played, I think it was 44 games on the offensive line, played right guard and center and left guard. First team all SEC this last year, and plays really tough, smart player as well. Limited athlete, limited upside in my opinion, but Stromberg is somebody that if the Broncos miss out on those first 2-3 centers, I would be a big fan of him round 4, and I think he could really push Cushenberry for that starting spot.
Well, and to kind of illustrate my point on this, how many tackles players listed at tackle were invited to the combine? I don't want to make you wait because it takes too long, but the answer is 25. There's twice as many tackles. Yeah, there are, but there's 17 guards and there were 9 centers. Yeah. Interior linemen, there were as many centers and guards as tackles. People are more interested in the bigger, harder to find athletic players. Those guys play tackle. So again, just kind of my point is it's never a great center class. That doesn't mean you can't find one.
Yep. And that was a big reason I wanted to pay Connor McGovern to bring him back into Denver and just solidify that
Still
position.
Can. He's out there.
He just got signed.
Did he? Okay. I thought we were talking last night. So did that he hadn't been signed. So
he just signed this morning. He re-signed with the Jets. So unfortunately. Good for him. But one less option for the Broncos, unfortunately. Jeremy Sean saying Schmitz is there at 6 a.m. calling it, but I doubt he'll be there. You never know without that. We also got Amy Alice coming in here saying, good morning, Broncos country. Good to see you, Amy. We got Jeremy also saying, I'm all about Bergeron at 67, 68 if he's there. I love Matthew Bergeron. I can think he's going to be one of probably the better players in this class. I think he's probably going to go in the top 50. He could play guard. He could play tackle. Good athlete, kind of a boxy. He has like a boxy frame, so he looks a little bit more like a guard, but I thought the tackle reps were good enough from him. I think he can play either scheme as well. Really caught my eye last year watching Sean Tucker. Everybody's like, you got to check out this Syracuse running back. Well, where's my eye go when I'm watching running back? The offensive line. I noticed that left tackle was beating some people up. Now, he did struggle against Miles Murphy, I think it was. The Syracuse game, Miles Murphy took his lunch pretty early a few times, but that's going to happen against some freaks. So some of those longer athletic freaks, some concerns about Bergeron, but really do like Bergeron there for the Broncos if he's there 67, 68. Don't think that'll happen. But moving on here, we got to ask Dane the next question here. Opposite side of the ball, the Broncos could further look to bolster their defensive front. Any defensive tackler, edge rushers, the Broncos could keep an eye on that could go early round 3 to help add along the defensive line. And he mentions Florida's Gervon Dexter, 6'6", 310-pound athlete with a high ceiling. Also mentions Baylor's Siaka Ika, who's a nose tackle, 6'3", 335 pounds, and a guy that we spent a lot of time talking about last Thursday, Scott, and Zach Pickens, former 5-star who can be interchangeable tackle in the Broncos front, can play 3 technique, can play 1 technique. Those are 3 names that all make sense to me. I really like Zach Pickens out of that group personally, but any of them could make sense. At edge, he mentions a guy that we've talked about a lot on here, and that's Zach Harrison, 6'6", 275 pounds with crazy length and speed. Linear rusher, doesn't have great bend, but it's somebody who could be a good rotational player. Then also mentions Byron Young, and we talked about Byron Young last week, Scott, because of the Mel Kiper, Todd McShay draft. He says about Byron Young, he has some issues versus the run, but if you're looking for an explosive option, he is your guy. And that's kind of funny, given your thoughts on Byron Young based on the Senior Bowl, where you're like, he's not doesn't look explosive, totally explosive, but, really arrives with some power and some tenacity as an edge.
He doesn't play like a 4'5" guy at 260. No. He plays like a 260 guy at 4'8", whose job is to hold down the run. I didn't see that explosion on him. And some of that can be technique, but I want to know why. Why are you not getting a better jump off the line? Why are you not using your hands better? Why are you not showing up like a 260-pound 4.5 guy? Because he's not. But that's the way he tests, and some of that is, I'd like to have 1040s on him. Are all of them in the 4.55 range, or was that an outlier? Because he doesn't play with that type of explosion. But again, third round for me would be too high on him. Later on, okay. Again, you're looking for traits, and he like I said, he'd be a better edge setter than Nick Benito early off. Might make you be able to move Jonathan Cooper for something. So we'll see. But for third round for me, that'd be too high for Byron Young, Tennessee's Byron Young.
Yeah, I agree with you. The other thing is that he's exceedingly old. I think he's going to be 25, 26 years old over the next coming season.
So
and
I know what you mean. I'm teasing.
For an edge rusher, that's an unfortunate age, especially when you're looking for 21, 22-year-old types in that. Man, so creepy to even just like put the words out of context. That would sound horrible. But that's a factor that may cause him to slip a little bit. Mentioned Zach Harrison as well. Obviously, we're big Zach Harrison fans. I've had some conversations with some people about Zach Harrison. Oh, he's a 4-3 defensive end, but with how multiple fronts are these days, you need different body types out there that play different roles. I mean, everybody's playing a little bit of everything out there with their personnel. And the Broncos right now, the only body type as far as the big edge setting type that they have is Zach Allen, honestly, if he's going to play some 7 technique out there. So you'd find a role for him. You need a lot of different types out there. It's the classic static, 4-3 versus 3-4 have become so blurred that you need different types.
And you're talking about Zach Pickens, right?
Zach Harrison.
Oh, Zach Harrison. Okay, I was like, Zach Pickens is almost 6'4", 300 pounds.
No, he's in any scheme interior defensive lineman. I was talking to Zach Harrison.
Yeah, but Zach Harrison's 6'5.5", 275. You know what that can, if he's playing at 280, 285 in a year and a half, you know what a 3-4 end becomes on a 4-3 and at 3rd and 8? An interior lineman, an interior pass rusher. So again, you can talk about he's a tweener. You can use that as a benefit or you can hold it against him. So you can scheme around, okay, so he might not be quick enough all the time out at edge. Okay, well, I also know that he's got his size, he's got his end taken care of in running situations. Great. He might not be big enough to hold up against a run on 3rd and 1. Okay, well, don't put him in the middle of the defense on 3rd and 1. Let's put him in the middle of the defense on 3rd and 8.
Yep.
So big and fast plays. I can find a way to use him.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to play a little bit more pocket contain over multiple gaps when you're playing that more sign of the pocket crunching on Patrick Mahomes, not letting him escape. Somebody with Zach Harrison's wingspan and skill set, even though sometimes he has some issues finishing plays, is going to be somebody who can at least keep Mahomes contained on those back end boots or when he tries to squeeze out from the pocket on a breakdown play. So
I like these 7'2" wingspan. He can play tackle and edge at the same time. Yeah. I mean, we're talking. That's crazy. He's got the line covered. He's got tackle to tackle covered by himself.
And he never lived up to the massive hype that he had coming out as a recruit, but still the athletic traits are there. And he's somebody that if you, because of the depth of this edge class this season, I think most years you see him go probably mid-second. Also the fact that he had a hamstring injury and didn't run the 40. We didn't get to see that athleticism out there at the verified athleticism at the combine. Obviously, the hamstring brings up a different conversation, but he's somebody that I've been a big fan of for the Broncos here at this spot for a bit. And if the Broncos take him there, you're investing in a height, weight, speed guy on the defensive line who's going to be a rotational player and should help you across the line. You guys can just go back to last Thursday, though, if you want to hear the Zach Pickens conversation. I had a chance to talk about him for about 10 minutes, ranting and raving about how much I really do like him from South Carolina. He had incredible jumps, too, and I think that is probably the most important. The 10-yard split and the jumps are probably the most important stats for your defensive lineman there. And he was like one of the best out there for the jumps. And he's like significantly heavier than the other guys who were in the same range for his
he had a
verticals.
30.5, which is pretty close to being. So the only one I see higher than that one was Jalen Redmond at 291, had 34.5 inch. And then that was it. And then number 3, Moro Ojomo. 6'2.5", 292, went 33 inches on the vertical.
So yeah, Pickens jumped out of the gym. Crazy length as well. I absolutely love the profile that he has. 1 technique, 3 technique, even 4 eye. So if the Broncos ended up taking Zach Pickens there at early 3rd round, I'd not be against it by any means. And we have Joseph coming in here. Was Drake Jackson last year similar to Harrison, or was he more polished? Drake Jackson was a lot more of a fluid finesse pass rusher with bend at the edge with good length, but a smaller body type, whereas Zach Harrison is more of that bull up front who's looking to jar stack and shed guys at the edge. I'm trying to think of somebody. I think that Zach Harrison's a lot more similar to a Zach played some edge and then was kicked inside in some packages.
Yeah, all you say is USC, and I start thinking, finesse, West Coast. I know that's not fair. That's a bad stereotype. But how do you think they become stereotypes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they happen over and over again. Although you did mention earlier about Brian Cushing, and he was far from finesse.
He was
out
from
there
New Jersey.
Okay, but I meant like playing at USC.
He was from New Jersey.
Yeah, then Ray Malaluga. That was a heck of a team. Who was the other one? Clay Matthews, obviously.
Yeah,
man.
Clay Matthews was a walk-on, and his brother worked in the media sector with us, and that was before Clay Matthews broke out. So we had I covered their fall camp one year, where I was out there for 2 straight weeks, and his name's Brian. I'm pretty sure it's Brian. I was like, Brian, Clay's the best guy out here. He's like, thanks, I appreciate that. And that was before he really had his breakout season, and you could see it coming in practices. You had Cushing and Malaluga out there, and I was like, that's the guy. Is this guy that the walk-on that people aren't talking about? And he lived up to that. But you could see it coming if you were there early.
Yeah, God, what a team that was out there at USC. I remember the having Sports Illustrated with all 3 of them on the cover. We have another question here from Dane, or another answer from Dane. I asked him about the Broncos being 1 injury away from abject disaster at boundary cornerback. Best player on the team, obviously, is Patrick Surtain II, but opposite him is just Damari Mathis right now with questionable depth behind him. Any 3rd round of cornerbacks that might be worth it for them? And he mentions a name that we haven't talked about too much on here, Scott, but he's always somebody that when we're doing the mock draft simulators is an option, and that is Miami's Tyreek Stevenson. Does he fall to the 3rd? Thinks he's a natural fit as a number 2 cornerback who can play some man, but that may be too good to be true if he falls there. He also mentioned Syracuse's Garrett Williams as an interesting case because he'd likely be a top 60 pick, if not for the ACL injury. He might have a discount on him because of that, and would the Broncos take a chance? He's also mentions a guy that we've talked about here recently, Corey Trice in the 3rd round. Says not too many 6'3", 210-pound corners with 4.4 speed and short elite area quickness. Deep cornerback class, so there might be a few options there even in the 4th round.
No, I like the idea of cornerback with one of those picks because you look at the depth. Now we talk about it's never a great center class. Mm-hmm. If I go over to NFL mock draft database and I start looking from 58 to where you mentioned Corey Trice, he's at 125. There are, and I won't name all of them. You can look them up yourself. But there's 10 guys there. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of really good players in there. Darius Rush is in that group, the corner from South Carolina. Kyu Blue Kelly, I like him as a technician. Could do a bunch of different things for you. He isn't a number 1, but in the 3rd round can come in and help your team out. So there's a lot of good options. They seem to be at corner in that range. So that could absolutely be a spot you're looking at the top of the 3rd round.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now, he mentions Tyreek Stevenson here. We've talked a little bit of Tyreek Stevenson because he was at the Senior Bowl. Any impressions on him? I know that the wide receiver talent wasn't incredible and the quarterback talent wasn't incredible, so you didn't really see the cornerbacks get tested too much. But I've seen some Tyreek Stevenson, top 50 hype out there. Specifically, he's been listed as one of the few that might be able to hold up in man coverage, and we know that man coverage cornerbacks are extremely valuable in today's NFL. So any thoughts on Tyreek Stevenson? He wasn't one that we really hyped up too much just from standing out at the Senior Bowl, but I know that he does have a lot of fans in the league, and he does have some very intriguing tape.
Yeah, I think for some reason he was kind of overshadowed while he was there. There were other guys I was talking, and Darius Rush was so good that he was the guy that I kept kind of coming to. And I'm kind of stalling a little bit because I do have video on him, and was going to bring it up here real quick.
Good play on the ball. He looks long, a little bit short, but like the wingspan there. A little high cut, could have added some base.
Yeah, nice flip of the hips. And then you see, he has good I wouldn't say recovery speed, but because that was keep up speed with him the whole time. But at cornerback coming in, he measured at the NFL Combine, but I had plenty of video on him that he was good. That he came in 6 foot 198, 32.5-inch arms, 4.45 40, and almost a 40-inch vertical leap with a 7.09 L cone. So the measurables are there. And again, it can be tough to get a good look at all these guys because maybe they're not challenging them that often in practice. So the one-on-ones show up well. But yeah, Tyreek Stevenson, I know that's a guy. I think that's a guy that Eric and Lance have talked about a lot on DVDD. Here he is with Mingo. Mingo's playing his good version of linebacker there. And I guess I was a little worried for Tyreek. And unfortunately, that is his last clip. That might not have been a coincidence when he grabbed his knee. That's the last clip I had on him. But he's really good player. Like I said, there's really good options at corner that should be available when you're picking at 67.
You would think. Now, I guess there's a reality out there where we keep talking about how much this wide receiver group is not very good compared to most years of the NFL, especially has been saying that the wide receiver group is bad. Maybe you see a crazy run on cornerbacks where wide receivers
pushes somebody else down.
Yeah.
That's the thing is you don't need, you're not coming out there saying, oh, we don't get a corner, we're screwed. It's a zero sum for everybody that comes up. And this people never understood about rankings. I want all my guys ranked higher, but nobody ranked lower. Well, it doesn't work that way.
No.
I can't rank 50 guys in the top 25. So if those guys get a run, okay, we'll take advantage of it. And maybe John Michael Schmitz drops down to you or somebody that you like at a different position. Maybe one of those edge rushers that you didn't think was going to be available is. So it's a good class of corners. And if they're not there, somebody else will be. It just might not be the cornerback.
Yep. Final question here. I asked another one I had 6 questions. This is the 5th one. He also plugged his mock draft saying he had the Broncos going A-Chain and Zach Harrison at 67, 68. But I asked him about the depth of the quarterback class here, about the long-term future of the Broncos there. And he said that he loves the day 3 class of quarterbacks this year. If you're looking for backups, someone who will be an asset to the quarterback room will help you win games if the starter goes down. A guy that he's been high on for a bit is Fresno State's Jake Haener. He also mentions Purdue's Aiden O'Connell, BYU's Jaron Hall, and Houston's Clayton Tune. All profiles, dependable backups in the NFL. He's saying, though, on the flip side, if you're looking for somebody as a developmental starter in the 3rd round, day 3, he mentions Tanner McKee. He says he's more of a Mike Glennon type, but could be an interesting player. Also, Shepherd's Tyson Bagent, an option in the later round. He's an interesting player, played at Shepherd, and I think all-time leader in touchdown passes. So some players there for the Broncos. At the quarterback position, we'll see what happens. I think Jarrett Stidham might be your quarterback choice in this upcoming cycle. So if you're looking for a backup, it's probably, given the lack of picks the Broncos have, maybe it's just, Jarrett Stidham and a priority free agent type.
Yeah, I think you've got your backup. Do you get lucky if you take a flyer on a guy late? It happens. So, but that's what it would take. I'm not drafting a guy thinking he's going to, unless it's Hendon Hooker and he's sitting there in the 3rd for some reason along those lines. But I don't think Hendon Hooker makes it past 45, 50 at the latest. But Dan asked question, what day does Denver draft? It'll start Friday night. But they're watching in case they trade up. You never know. But the draft starts Thursday. It'll be the 1st round. Then rounds 2 and 3 will be on Friday night. And MHH will be here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, MHH is here for you. One final mock draft Monday. It's already 7:30, but we got in here at 10, 15 minutes later. So we'll run a 7-round mock draft here and then get on out of here. It is the final week, so we're going to be plenty busy and hanging out with you guys. But Broncos obviously picking the 67, 68, and 108. Those are the areas to target for difference makers. After that, we'll see how it plays out for the Broncos. Could go any which direction. Could go running back early. Tight end is a possibility. Well, they might even trade up. We haven't done much mocks with trades up, but given Sean Payton's history, a trade up is very much in the cards for the Broncos, something that could happen. So we'll see what happens here. Let's get this running here. The Broncos will be picking 67 first, and we're using the PFF simulator.
We'll trade the 67th for the number 1 overall, and we'll force this trade, and that'll seem realistic. We want to crank up the randomness here, but yeah, we'll hit start, and you see the picks the Broncos have: 67, 68, 108, 139, and 195. So 1, 2, 3, 4 top 150 picks, 3 in the top 108. Let me see who went at the top again. Interested to see. You got Bryce Young, then CJ Stroud, then Christian Gonzalez, number 3 overall. Will Levis, that could happen. Will Anderson 5. The Seahawks would be thrilled. Skoronski to the Lions. Anthony Richardson, and then Jalen Carter. Very interesting at the top. Broncos are on the board at 67. And there's not a single player that we've talked about that's available. There's Darius Rush, corner. We talked about him. Tucker Kraft at tight end. Marvin Mims. Some of the players that went just ahead. Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver. Let me see here.
There's
Zach
Bergeron.
Charbonnet, 57. Tyreek Stevenson, 56. We mentioned the options at corner. There was Corey Trice was available. So we said there's going to be some guys that are going to be available. There's Darius Rush. There's Corey Trice. Tre'Davious Hodge-Tomlinson. All these guys are in that range.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, you should have pretty good options at corner if that's the direction you want to go.
I really, really like Jartavius Martin as well. We haven't talked about him very much, but he is a super interesting player that played box, slot, boundary, and deep post safety. Talk about versatility. They did such a good job with Illinois out there. So the one who stands out here for me, this is going to be me being biased, but it's Sam Laporta. I think he's probably the highest rated player. I mean, he's 43 overall ranked, and you're talking about him going 67, 68. Broncos right now have questions at tight end depth wise. He's somebody that I think could be a really good player. Maybe he's a little bit redundant to Greg Dulcich. I think they kind of profile similarly, but Sam Laporta might be the best player available.
And again, you need a tight end. I don't think you can count on Okwuegbunam at all. The Broncos certainly didn't last year. You brought in Manhertz, and you've got Dulcich. Dulcich is kind of a hybrid playmaking tight end. You could use another flat-out I play tight end in this spot, and you get to take 2 picks. So if we want to get a cornerback, if we want to go a different direction, we can. Lance asks, it's going to be great fun watching what happens. Are you live broadcasting during the draft? I'd love to get your instant reactions. So Nick and I will be on my channel, youtube.com/Scott Kennedy, for picks 1 to 10 before he hops over to MHH. And then I'm pretty sure you're going to be on both day 2 and day 3 then.
Yep.
So the only part that Nick will not be on for the draft on this channel will be the top 10 in the first round. And Nick and I will be on my channel for that. Otherwise, Nick will be here.
Yeah. So I think we haven't done this yet, but Laporta is, I think, just too talented here to pass on. So let's go Laporta. The next one that stands out to me here, not Luke Weipler. I know that he's drafted pretty high. A-Chain is interesting here. That's who Brugler had mocked to the Broncos. Could be a really fun player. Darius Rush really does stands out. You still have Tucker Kraft available as well. Marvin Mims we've talked about. There's Corey Trice, who's somebody that we're starting to see mocked up here with the Broncos. Is Zach Pickens still available? Interior defensive line. Maybe he's a little bit lower. He's one that I think PFF maybe has round 4. He's PBID. Oh, yep, DL. Zach Pickens, 95. I think if the Broncos end up going Zach Pickens at 68, it makes all the sense in the world. I'd have no issue with that. I think we'll go with Darius Rush on this one, the other South Carolina player. But I went back and watched some of the tape, and I'm a sucker for long, explosive, out of their stances, versatile interior defensive line.
I mean, you can't go wrong getting a 300-pounder that can run and move like him.
Okay, let's go Zach Pickens then. We'll see what happens with the cornerback spot after that. We're going to get a bad grade. You'll have to plug in interior defensive linemen for this.
I mean,
but
there's corners available, and there's not how many guys like Zach Pickens you're going to have a shot at the rest of the way.
You won't.
You won't.
You won't, especially with the body types that you're talking about there. He's somebody I actually think projects as a really good starting.
Darius Rush went to the very next pick. Not totally surprising. They have him ranked pretty high. So some of the guys you looked over were Darius Rush, Devon A-Chain, Tucker Kraft, 3 guys, and then a center. So the next 4 picks will be looked at by guys like me with a microscope. We'll be watching those because you could have gone any one of those 5 picks in that spot and been pretty happy, I would think. Yeah, Tyler Scott there's your wide receiver also.
Derek Hall also. I mean, I forgot that Derek Hall was there. We've taken him a lot, so maybe he's one of my favorite players in the draft with just the power that he plays with. Fun one. There's Jatavius Martin we talked about a lot there. Nick Saldiveri, somebody we talked about. A lot of good players. There goes Zach Harrison, middle of the round.
3rd round looks nice. George wasn't lying when he said the sweet spot was top of the 3rd.
Yeah, no doubt. There's Yaya
Diaby sneaking into the top 100 now.
Corey Trice. Right there, a little bit of a bummer that Corey Trice comes off there. I was hoping, maybe somebody like Jatavius Martin would fall here. maybe one of those other guys with Carl Brooks there. Cam Mitchell, very underrated player from Northwestern. So a little bit unfortunate with the run on players there, but sometimes, them's the breaks for the Broncos. Man,
So you flip it to corner now, and you still have some guys that are decent players that are available at corner later.
Yeah, Hodges Tomlinson is just so small that I have a hard time taking him here. I honestly don't love the value of any of the cornerbacks there, where it's currently set up. We already went tight end, so that's one that doesn't make a lot of sense for me. I really like Dorian Williams. He's somebody who stands out there for the Broncos. We're looking at potentially running back as well. It's going to be really biased of me, but maybe the best guy available here might be Riley Moss. Round 4, it could be a potential starting player. Moss would be good. Yeah, Moss really stands out of the names that I've seen scrolling through here so far. The other one who really stands out is, and let's go this way. I think he's somebody with a lot of tools who could develop into a starting tackle, and we're looking to invest in the position. This is definitely not a year 1 pick here, but we're looking for value of investment. Offensive tackle, Wanya Morris here, 5-tool guy, tested really well. I think he can play left tackle, can play right tackle, somebody who might be really interesting for the Broncos at that spot. So that's where we're looking there for the Broncos. Now we're on the board here. We're looking offensive, interior offensive line. We're looking cornerback. We're looking running back. Chase Brown does stand out here for me. Sidney Sow stands out here for me. Kentrell Clark stands out for me here a lot. Anybody who you think here, Scott? Where are we at?
No, I like if you're looking for Chase Brown, to me is very similar running back style to Tank Bigsby. Can go between the tackles, has a little bit of burst to him. You're talking about getting him in the 5th, and you want to improve the room. He might be the best player still out there.
There's a name here that we haven't gone.
That aren't just complete. What's the word I'm looking for? When they're way off the chart for. Never mind. Outliers. That's the word I'm looking for. Aren't complete outliers on this on PFF's boards where they're like cheats. So like, okay, they just forgot to rank this guy.
Yeah, he's interesting. The player I want to go here, and maybe this is just me being a little bit biased, but a different body type. I'm looking to get some butt kickers on the defensive line, and somebody who tested pretty well for the position that had really good stats is Fehoko from San Diego State. We have not talked about him very much here, but he's somebody who stands out here for me. 6'4", 275 pounds, 4'7", 40, 33-inch arm length. I think he had crazy stats for San Diego State this last year. A lot of pressures. I'm a big fan. Oh, we also have Emil Ekiyor here.
And he ain't gonna last. He ain't gonna last till the next pick at 195.
Yeah, let's go Emil Ekiyor. We're literally leaning into the offensive line here. We totally have redone the room in 1 season, and I think that we'll be able to find a wide receiver or a running back here that might make some sense for the Broncos. So we're looking here. We got quarterback. We mentioned Clayton Tune as a name. Would be interesting. Can you go to wide receiver? And scroll down a little bit. Raheem Grant, Ronnie Bell's interesting. Love Demas coming out. He's had some injury issues. Did my guy Bryce Ford Wheaton already come off the board? Maybe he did. I thought he was he used to be able to get him here round 6. It looks like he might be gone now. Unfortunately,
well, I moved it more to average draft position.
Okay. Yeah, he tested
that's almost like that's more of a consensus where the people are picking him because they're looking at different places where it's just PFFs. And if PFF doesn't like a guy, you can kind of cheat the system and get the guy you want because you know they've got him underranked. What do we say? Wide receiver, running back is one I wanted to look at.
Oh, Evan Hull here for me. I don't think it's a question. I love Evan Hull. He's probably one of the most underrated running backs in this class. He ran really well. He's really good out of the backfield as a receiver. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he went in the 5th round. I think he's somebody that you could get a lot of value with in the draft and could be a player that complements the room really well if you're looking for somebody who can do everything. Evan Hull is one of my favorites.
We got bigger, that's for sure.
God, yeah, we really went
big tight end, DL, tackle, guard, running back.
Yep, didn't add any wide receiver, didn't add any cornerback or safety. But
it's
this
okay.
is
You're not trading away any wide receivers.
That's true. That's true. So Zach Pickens, the worst pick on here. Or actually, they didn't like Emil Ekiyor either. So I overall, I think this would be a really fun building on the baseline of this class for the Broncos and really getting bigger and stronger up front.
No, you look at Ekiyor and they don't like him. He's ranked 195 on their big board, and he's going much, much higher than that in these type of drafts in the average draft position. and he's a good player. Guard, they have him listed at guard. He played. Let's just show him up again real quick. We can pull this down. We'll stop sharing, and I'll bring this video up again of him. But Emil Ekiyor was strictly center at the Senior Bowl. I don't remember even taking a snap. There's Mississippi State. I don't remember his name. The Mississippi State defensive lineman interior was a pretty good player too, Nick.
Yeah.
Interior DL, Mississippi State. That was Cameron Young, 6'3", 304, 35-inch arms. He was a pretty good player too. And that's Alabama's Byron Young, 47, I think, that he was going against. And that's DJ Dale, the other Alabama kid that was there. So some work in there. But look at the anchor on this dude. That's Zach Pickens right there. So you see the way Zach, and there's two of your guys right there going against each other. So that's a good rep that we took. Watch Zach Pickens fire off of this ball, get the initial punch, and then Emil is able to set back in and get set and hold enough time. Now, I put that on both of their reels. I consider that a kind of a draw because I see a lot from both of those guys, and that's not a bad rep for Ekiyor. That's more time than Russell Wilson was getting in the pocket last year, I promise you.
Yeah. I really like
Zach. He's right at the line of scrimmage, in a drop back pass. He's still out there. Never got moved. And that's him against Zach Pickens again, actually. So another good rep to watch. That's him and Zach Pickens. And, was able to take him out and clear the left side of the line. I believe that's Cameron Young, nose up over him. So, yeah, again, they can give a D to that all you want. That kid can play.
Yeah, and Zach Pickens might be one of my favorites in this class. Just given I very much have a type. Some guys have a type, and the athletic, long interior defensive lineman is mine, and I think Pickens might be the guy. Michael Ronquillo, great show today. Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos and Buckham. Well, thank you, Michael. We appreciate that. And Michael also makes the connection. Lou Aeni is the Broncos' new running backs coach. And where did he coach last year, Scott? Yep, you're right. Northwestern. So the Broncos go with the Northwestern running back there. I know that the fantasy community is very high on Evan Hull as well, given he weighed like 210 and a 5'10" frame, which is a good body type for running back.
Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for a lot of those guys. And he's a really good pass catching back as well. So I think he's a little bit underrated. And that's one of the reasons that waiting on running back there, I think makes a lot of sense for the Broncos if they can. So any final thoughts on our final mock draft Monday? I think we'll run another one tomorrow because we're going to squeeze all that juice we can.
We'll run another one tomorrow.
Yeah. But any thoughts on that? What was your favorite to pick? Any of those ones where you're like, I wish we'd have gone back a different way with that one?
We went Darius Rush, or we went Zach Pickens, didn't we?
Yeah.
Zach Pickens is a solid pick. Who comes in and plays early out of that bunch? There's a lot of candidates.
Pickens plays early. He's a rotational.
Laporta at tight end. You've got a need for another tight end right away, especially if you want to go heavy set. You're not bringing in Dulcich if you want to go heavy. So you got Manhurts and who? Okuebanam, the run blocking machine? No.
Yeah.
So, if you want to go a heavy set, you might have Dulcich as a slot receiver as one of your receivers, but you can absolutely use a tight end early. Again, Zach Pickens, I'm not going to complain about a 6'3", 300-pounder that moves like he does ever. Wanya Morris, your tackle, your developmental tackle.
Swing tackle.
That might be the biggest one that I think has the biggest bust factor.
Mm-hmm.
But can you really bust in the fourth round on an offensive lineman that you're thinking may develop into something? Take your shot. And then Ekiyor and Evan Hull are great value in the 5th and 6th.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be fun, man. Last final mock draft Monday. Appreciate everyone coming in, hanging out. Lance comes in, says, love the show, fellas. Informative, entertaining as always. See you during the draft. Well, we'll be live again tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday. So hopefully we'll see you then as well, but we'll be live during the draft as well. And make sure you guys are following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also, make sure you guys are following us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join us at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as the ticker says underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Smash that subscribe, as they like to say, hit that bell so that way you know when we go live as well. And that's going to have to do it for us today. You guys are great. Thanks for all the support today. It's going to be a big week. We're going to be here a lot, so make sure you're keeping tuning in here, Mile High Huddle. We'll see you guys again early tomorrow. We'll see you tonight also, Huddle Up podcast. Any final thoughts, Scott, before we get on out of here?
I think you're doing the Mile High Roundtable tonight, aren't you?
That would be the first I had heard of it.
All right. So I think the Mile High Roundtable draft is supposed to be going on tonight with several of the experts come in. I bowed out of that. I'm antisocial any more than one or two people. And I'm like, no, I'm out. So, but that's what's supposed to be going on tonight. So check it out. Try and keep it with 5 picks. Everybody gets about a minute to make it. And someone's got to be in charge. I'm going to make sure that, Chad, you've got final say. And but that's supposed to be tonight, the Mile High Roundtable with lots of the MHH podcast personalities on tonight.
Well, it's possible that I was told, but I was having too much fun at the baseball game yesterday. So I'll have to go check my notes. But you guys have a great one. We'll see you again tomorrow, maybe tonight. Make sure you continue to choose kindness and compassion. And as always, go Broncos.